Thank you. Thank you, Madam Executive Director. I'd like to call the order of the Beachy Park District the meeting to order. Today's date is September the 3rd, 2024. Joanne, please call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Here.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Here.
And Commissioner Wright will be here shortly.
Understand there are changes to the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chairman. We'd like to move number 2 to number 1 so that Commissioner Wright will be here to discuss objectives and goals. We will do the Spark design first, if everybody's agreeable to that change.
Any objections here? Seeing no objections, we'll consider the agenda amended. The next item is public request. And anything on the
Nobody online.
nobody online, nobody in the audience. I'll close this portion of the meeting. The approval of the minutes of the previous board meeting.
Move to approve.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Well, she likes the roll call. You're taking your
Oh.
man out of the job here.
I was getting.
Everyone off.
I was getting to
Yeah.
that.
Okay, all right.
Rookie mistake. It's okay.
Okay, I'm used to doing the chair of the FAIA and we didn't have to do what we have to do here, so.
Prior to COVID, I think we did a lot
We
of
did,
everybody
you
say,
did.
it,
Yeah.
but then after COVID, it
Okay,
became. roll
okay,
call
would you
vote.
call the roll, Joanne?
Absolutely. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. The next order of business is the Spark Design Continuing Services Agreement. Did you want to get into that right now?
I will try to talk slowly.
Okay.
Commissioners, on page 11 of your agenda packets is just a brief memo. If you recall, on June 3rd, this board unanimously awarded contracts to 3 firms for us to negotiate with. Spark was one of those. We already approved the KCI and Miller Lake agreement. So this agreement was reviewed by our legal counsel as well as FMIT, and they are all on board with it. So tonight, just looking for a motion to approve this, and then we will have 3 new architect engineering firms under a contract so that as projects come up, we'll be able to delegate those out.
Move to approve the Spark agreement.
Second. Discussion.
Yeah, just to keep the dialogue going, Brian, you have met with Spark Design, and I think the ongoing thing we always have is one part is just the project manager,
Yes.
the ongoing project manager stuff, and this is kind of our opportunity to fix it if we can. Is that being addressed? Are you comfortable with what you have here in this?
So I'm comfortable with this agreement, but one of the things which you brought up in an email earlier today, and we've had some issues with project management on one of our larger projects right now. So one of the things that one of the points that Commissioner Ernst brought up was that in our future additional services agreements that we do. So let's say we give Spark an assignment to do a project. We'll make sure that we incorporate it into their additional services agreement that any project manager will need to sit down with me first, make sure we're comfortable moving forward with that project with that person on board. I think that's a really good point. So that would come when we do those additional services agreements for each project. We'll make that part of that requirement.
I think it's important that you ask for the A-team, is what
I
you want.
Totally agree.
And so if you give it to the owner, they're gonna give who's available, and that's what you get. And sometimes it's not what you want, but they do, not everyone is equal on these things. So having a greater say in it is important. We spend a lot of money on these things, and it's great design and all that, but sometimes, we don't want to be disappointed, and you don't want to spend so much time doing it.
I 100% agree. And we've definitely ran into that. So it's important to fix it moving forward.
Do you, in this spirit, then, do you have, we've talked about this previously about, obviously we've, addressed like communication. Do you need someone on staff as consulting for any of this stuff that will assist you in any of it? Is that something to consider in the?
It's something we could think about in the future. I'm not
Right.
prepared to commit to anything right now, but definitely for some of these projects, it may be helpful to have somebody apart from the architect engineering firm to consult on construction or to manage those projects,
Right.
especially our larger ones, just in light of the issues that we've had recently, combining the two things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. All right.
Good points. Anything
Good.
else?
No.
I would say, Brian, that whoever did the insurance specs at the insurance company did a nice job with putting those together with the things that very often are left out. The one thing that you may have issues with is on professional liability. I'm not sure that we can be named as an additional insured on that.
Yeah, okay,
So that's something to just be alert to, that they'll probably tell you that that's not possible to, and you don't necessarily want to be there.
yes,
So-
okay.
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 Any further comments? Was the motion already made?
Yes,
Yep.
it was.
Okay. And Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay.
Commissioners, I just heard the door downstairs, so I feel like
You did.
You have
unbelievable.
I think she's running down the hall as we speak.
Okay, let's speed it up then.
Yeah.
Let's,
Okay, so that's a wrap on the meeting.
I'd
Let's
like
wrap it
to
up.
call the adjournment to the meeting.
We've changed the agenda and moved number 2 to number 1.
Okay.
Relax.
Do we have to do anything to turn it back over to Chairman
The
Ryan?
chair just has, the vice chair should simply pass the gavel, euphemistically or otherwise, so. Yes.
Okay, so regular business,
We-
or have we done changes to the agenda, public requests?
We did a
Yep.
change
Yep.
and we did Spark already, so now we're just doing the district goals and objectives as the next item to talk about.
Okay. Go ahead.
So commissioners, on page 5 of your agenda packets is a memo kind of explaining, we've all talked about this and heard from Sam and Jake both over the last year about the legislation that passed. So this new legislation does require that the district put together goals and objectives for each fiscal year. So the goals and objectives that we put together for this fiscal year will be evaluated in an annual report at the end of this fiscal year. So by next December, I would then put together an annual report summarizing how we've done on these goals and objectives. So we'll actually do another set of goals and objectives next year about this time, before you see the first annual report. I'm gonna do an annual report just to test run it this year, but it won't be required to submit until we've done a full fiscal year. But the new Florida statute is 189.0694, and certainly Sam would be much more qualified to talk on that statute, but in your agenda packet, starting on page 6, is a list of our goals and objectives that I put together for this board to consider tonight. And if you are wanting to move forward with them or make some changes to them, we do have a resolution on page, starting on page 8, that I'll have Sam read into the record, and then you all can discuss adopting that resolution.
Okay, so and does anybody have any comments or changes to the goals and objectives that are in the packet? Yes.
I want to compliment Brianne and staff for doing a really good job of figuring out how to do this. This was not easy. And how you just went through this and made it very concise and very readable. Excellent.
Thank you.
And it looks to me like too, like there's flexibility in here with, you didn't pull things too tight.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that, there's room in here to play with, to say it another way. But I thought that they were very well written, and I didn't have any objection, any other than what I talked to Brian about earlier.
Leeway, there's some leeway.
Leeway. Thank you. That's a better political term to use, leeway. I see our
Okay.
president using that all the time.
Anybody else? Nope, do we need to? make a
Move
motion?
to adopt resolution number
Oh.
2024
Hold
dash
on.
04. Oh, sorry,
One second.
You
my
got two
bad.
more comments.
Well, I just wanted to echo what Bob said and what Susie said. I think you did an exemplary job with this. And you did it in a manner that gives us some flexibility to move forward. And, so it's a win-win for us. We're adhering to the statute, and we're doing it in a manner that affords us the flexibility to do what we need to do as a commission.
Thank you. I hope the state agrees with everybody too, when we get our first audit.
So, look, I think it's, great in this, taking it in the spirit of what I guess the state wanted us to do. We came up with 4 goals and they're solid. You know, I think the next step, like anything, when you set goals, is now you got to measure them. And so they're going to measure these things. And I agree with the concept. Are they too tight or too loose? This is the first time we've done that.
Yeah.
You know, so my only question to you on these things is just be sure you're comfortable. So like in the objective 1.3, it says ensure 100% accuracy that all CIP projects do not exceed contract limits. Can you do that? And is that too tough? So what happens if you're not, is it accuracy of what? Financially or accuracy of?
So I think it's making sure that if there is a change to a contract, it comes before you guys first. You would adopt a change. A change order would get adopted first before we change anybody's contract. So the contract price, let's say, I don't even want to put it out there, but let's just say there's a change order on some pickleball project in the future, not the one we have now. But I would come before you before making that change. And I think that's part of the fiscal responsibility that the state is looking for from special districts, is making sure that it's going through the board first before staff is just approving changes to
Right.
contracts without it being properly channeled.
I'm good with that. I'm just saying for you now, you have to have almost a measure for each of these things.
Yes.
And to ensure that you understand that that's how you're going to measure it. And if someone says, okay, I want my public's records request of this one, what did you do? Because that's what we're going to end up with.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it looks a little bureaucratic to me, but you know, I'm saying I don't want us to be hung out to dry. I say, okay, is 100% your term of accuracy of projects versus financial, fine with me, as long as you understand you've got it written as a procedure somewhere else or whatever you want to do.
I feel comfortable, and I feel
Okay.
like our board in general is, none of these things that the state is asking us to meet, none of these objectives
No,
are
I
things
neutral.
that this board doesn't already do on the
Right.
regular. I think we're very transparent. I think you guys talk about everything very open and publicly. And I think we've done a really good job managing our budget, making sure funds are allocated to projects. Change orders come before you ahead of time. We follow all the procedures. So I am 100% comfortable that I could
Do
um,
this.
do this and show the state just how efficient this board is.
Good. The last thing I guess I would say is on the second page, you know, you have in there 100% of the facilities inspected quarterly and all necessary maintenance completed on schedule, which is now we've got something to do.
Yes.
Someone means, you know, it's got to be accountable to that. And that means you got to have, you know, a record that says someone's inspected 100% of the facilities
Mhm.
quarterly and all necessary maintenance completed on schedule. So that means, I like the idea of, I don't want to be completed because some things you can't. You know, if the carousel is down, you can't complete it on the schedule. It's, but you have a schedule, so whatever that schedule is, you can adjust it. So
Right.
just know what you're setting yourself up for
Tracking that.
on this
Yes.
whole thing, which I think to me then comes back to, you want accountability, you got to come back to us with some kind of, where's your performance metrics? It leads to KPIs. That's where it's going. And so you want to kind of think about it. I'm not sure, that way everyone can share in this great new task.
Yeah, I think, as things like if things get delayed or if there's a big maintenance issue like that, I think it's all documented. I think it's documented in a meeting, it's documented in our financials, all that stuff. So we have a track record that we're still working on. It's not like we just left this thing hanging or people are riding out on a carousel that's whipping kids around at 90 miles an hour or something. We're taking care of things and doing it the way it needs to get done.
Good.
Okay, Susie.
Okay. Move to adopt resolution. Hold on, I gotta get back to my page.
If with your permission, Madam Chair, I can read the title into the record. This way you'll have it
Okay.
on the record to be approved. I'd be happy to, with
Okay.
your permission. It is, for the record, Madam Chair and Commissioners, it's resolution number 2024-04, which is a resolution of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District adopting goals, objectives, and performance measures in compliance with section 189.0694 of the Florida statutes, adopted just this past session, directing the district's executive director to implement the goals, objectives, and performance measures set forth herein, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and finally providing for an effective date. Resolution 2024-04 on the floor for consideration by appropriate motion, Madam Chair, and the items before you in that form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adopt resolution number 2024-04.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Nope. Really?
Okay, Commissioner Ernst.
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, approval of payroll and invoices.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval of payroll and invoices in the amount of $394,395.88.
Second.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving on to reports and discussion items.
Commissioners, on September 5th, we have the planning and zoning meeting for North Park. So that's an exciting, if you've driven by North Park, you've seen the big yellow signs out there announcing the public notice. So I'll be at that meeting,
What's the date?
September 5th.
September 5th. That's this week.
Yes, it is. Yes. So it's very exciting to see that moving forward. I mentioned in an email earlier that the Public Works requires a pre-construction meeting, and I thought it was going to be also September 5th, but it's actually tomorrow. So hopefully after that meeting, the permits for the pickleball courts get issued quickly. As we mentioned at our last meeting, thanks to Commissioner Ernst for reminding me, starting October 1, district residents who reside outside of the city are going to be able to obtain a city library card as a resident, and they'll also get resident rates at the downtown recreational facilities like the tennis center or any classes at Boca Raton Community Center. And then this month, we are wrapping up our celebration of 50 years of the Beach and Park District with free carousel rides at Sugar Sand. So hopefully the rain will subside so people can actually take advantage of that on the weekends.
Sure.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Steve, you want to go, or actually, sorry, legal counsel, do you have anything?
Just briefly, if you will,
Mhm.
without getting into great detail, there has been at least one settlement conference on the J.J. Morley matter, which occurred over the past 10 days. I cannot bring back to a settlement proposal because I don't have one to present this evening. Brianne met with our special counsel, Hampton Johnson, along with John Swartz, one of our senior associates in the office this past week. There's some additional conversation yet to occur. The district has very well-documented records and has some very well-placed facts, which apparently have yet to be fully embraced by the defendants. And to that extent, I will be happy to brief with you individually offline to the extent that I need to, or you would like to. But at this point, I have no settlement to bring back to the board. The case is still pending. Discovery is still occurring. And to the extent that the district has a valid and thoughtful claim against the defendant, it continues regrettably, but it's still happening. And to that extent, I can brief you as things progress. But at this point, I commend Brianne for her very detail-oriented background and information which was provided. And that's probably the best I should say on the record this evening regarding that conference. We did conduct a conference. It was thoughtful yet unproductive in the context of an actual result.
So Sam, just for clarification, there's a number, whatever that number is,
Correct.
that the other party owes us because they
That's
backed
correct.
out of things.
Correct,
They're incurring legal costs, we're incurring legal costs.
correct.
This is, as it goes down its normal path of legal stuff, it will end up in a judge or a jury and.
My recollection was that we've not asked for a jury trial. I may not be correct on that issue, but
That's true.
it is in circuit court. I'm sorry.
There is no jury.
There's
We
no
didn't
jury. It's a
ask for
bench trial. It's before a judge, but at this point, it's in Palm Beach County Circuit Court.
Okay,
It's pending before a judge. You all know what discovery is, that people are, basically sending out interrogatories and other discovery and requests for admissions and other information that we can. There's been a sharing of documentation, and Brianne's been very particular about delivering data, even, and I can tell you on the record that even the number of plants that were reinstalled by the district's replacement contractor.
sure.
I mean, we know exactly how many plants replaced, and we know what the claim is. We know what the attorney's fees have been. We know what the cost and expense was of the replacement contractor, and we're not in the same ballpark at the moment.
So when you get to the end of this thing, it goes to a judge. The judge is gonna say, you win, you lose.
Generally correct.
Do they also award the attorney's fees, our attorney's fees?
Well, the prevailing
or
party. under
The prevailing
contra-
party's attorney's fees?
Under the easement,
Okay.
we have what's called a fee shifting provision, which is a prevailing party clause. And
Okay.
that's something which our lawyer has given us the comfort of recognizing that it is a, what's the word I can use that won't sound offensive? It is an influencing part of the discussion.
Okay,
There is a fee provision that suggests that the more time and expense that the district incurs regarding its counsel is an additional tab that they have to pay if they're found to be in violation. and if there's a breach, and we do believe there has been a breach.
And the last question is, they posted a bond for this stuff or not? And
No.
is there any resources to go after? Just
There is
because-
not.
Okay, so
There
if
is
they
not.
don't have any money, they don't have any money, and then we're,
That's a possibility, although the defendant, JJ Morley, is an operating company. They're still doing business in Florida.
okay,
And they apparently have enough assets to be hiring a lawyer to speak towards the issues and defend the case.
okay,
And they've hired a reputable law firm to represent them.
okay.
We may not agree with that reputable law firm, but they do have a reputable firm. And there has been at this interceding moment of settlement discussions that occurred, and Brianne did what she could. And we don't have anything to bring back to the board for consideration. We're still not in the same place that I think you all want to be.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a matter of, if I may quickly, we never had a shade meeting with this organization. Under state law, as you know, there's an ability of public bodies to meet in a shade meeting, with an outside the sunshine meeting, where I would seek your guidance to settle a matter or to discuss the issues of potential settlement. I've requested Hampton Johnson, if he wants me to ask for, I can ask you for a shade meeting, because you have to ask for one before you actually have one. And I can ask you this evening, for example, that at some future moment, I would like to have a shade meeting on the subject. But I can't yet detail anything to take into the shade to discuss with you at this particular point. So, shade meeting basically occurs either before, after, or during a regular existing public meeting with a court reporter being present. It's closed to the public. It's only the board itself, your special counsel, your director, and your general counsel. It's transcribed by a court reporter. It's sealed until the case either resolves through litigation or appeal. The end result of which is it's a session where you can speak freely and confidentially in a fashion which is privileged in that shade meeting. And to the extent that I've yet to I can ask you for one this evening. I can say, Madam Chair, members of the board, at some future moment, I'd like to schedule a shade meeting with you, and without objection by the chair and by the board, we can simply schedule one. But I've yet to have that direction from our council.
I think everything is going fine, but at some point, it probably is if whatever we have to do for the state of Florida that makes the most sense. If that's
Yes.
what you need to do, that's what you
Understood.
need to do,
Understood.
or individually, but that's up to our chair and our executive director.
I agree from a legal perspective.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sam, I thought originally this contract for the easement and the repairs to it were pretty cut and dried.
Yes.
So, and given the fact that it looked like a simple process of, you didn't do what you're supposed to do, so pay us the money. So where's the conflict between the two parties?
The conflict is that we believe that they did not perform and that they in fact breached the contract, which is the easement. We sued them for a violation of that breach. The district has been damaged because you had to hire, pardon my back, by the way, you had to hire a replacement contractor to finish the work because they didn't do it. And the claim is based upon the cost of the replacement work plus fees and expenses. So the end result is I am as flummoxed as you are as the lawyer. This matter could have been resolved earlier, a long time ago, but for the fact that we without getting into great detail publicly, the defendant in this case and the folks that have the easement, they were just greatly non-responsive to the district's executive director.
Well, that was the attorney for the defendant was non-responsive at one
Yes.
point, right?
Yes, as was the contractor, as was JJ Morley.
Okay, so I don't understand what the problem was. That was a pretty simple matter of
We
X
thought-
number of dollars, and now they've added to that potential.
They're still adding to it
Right.
by virtue of this discussion we're having just this evening. Which I don't want to use the word alarming, but it's certainly of concern.
Well, are they saying that they did complete the work?
I think
Or
that
can you not get into that?
I will defer briefly to Brianne just to give an assessment of that, because we see the facts somewhat differently than they do.
Okay,
That's probably the best way I can put it, but
Okay.
they have a belief that that they were sort of barred from completing the work, which I find to be a very unique
Mm.
set of facts.
okay.
I think that's,
That's the best way to say it.
Yes.
I mean, I'd be careful with what I don't know what to say publicly, so.
Okay,
I mean, we can speak more freely during a shade meeting, which again, I've asked for, and we can have at some future moment, but at the end of the day, there's a different view of what the conclusion was. They didn't perform, and when asked to perform, they chose not to.
Could we move for a summary judgment? I mean,
At some point, the answer is yes. And at some point, the judge would have to consider that, whether or not there's any a genuine issue of material fact on the table that needs to be discussed, and the court finds that that's not the case, then the court can enter a summary judgment. There've been no depositions taken, by the way. It's just been preliminary discovery. And there's been one non-required settlement conference at the request of the other side. Now, at some point, the court's going to order mediation, non-binding mediation under state law. There'll be some discussion that'll occur prior to trial. I think this case is not set for trial until early next year.
Well, isn't that what we've been doing? Is mediating this?
Trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that's.
I mean, your directors actually acted in very, very good faith. And Hampton Johnson, who is a good lawyer, he's not a kid. He's a mature lawyer, knows what he's doing. I think, without getting into great detail, and forgive me for sounding resistant to that, I think is also flummoxed by the fact we couldn't resolve this matter. I've tried many cases in my lifetime. It's regrettable, potentially, that this matter has reached this level of exchange. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But we'll talk more about that, I suspect, when we get to the next meeting. Probably.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
you're welcome.
And just as a side note, the statute 189-0694 was adopted this past session. The adopted resolution this evening with regard to the goals and objectives is actually being stolen shamelessly by other districts because it's so well written. You should know. I know that because we represent other districts and they're looking at the format and they said they got the one from us. So the statute doesn't give you a lot of direction, just gives you some guidance, but this document is a very complete yet flexible document that allows you some potential change as things progress. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you for listening as always.
Would you like
Yeah.
to go? Steve, do you have anything?
First, congrats to Susie. Welcome to the Grandparents Club. You're gonna love it. Also, Brianne, where do we stand on permitting for the playground at Patch Reef?
The contractor's working on permitting right now, so they're just, we awarded the contract, they're working through the permitting process, so things are moving along through there. There's no holdups. Right now, they're just getting through the comments back and forth.
Okay, will we be able to meet the goal of construction being completed by the end of the year? It doesn't sound like it, but
I think we had planned to have it open by next summer, so I think that's been the goal, is to get it done by it would take a year to construct, and I think we're still on target for that, yeah.
all right.
So far, no big roadblocks, so somebody knock on wood.
Okay, and finally, I'm looking at this room and I'm thinking to myself, it's nice that the community trusts us, but, I hear stuff, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I say, well, why don't you come to a meeting? So for the record, I'm disappointed in the public for not even bothering to show up. The meetings are posted. And the public deserves a voice, but they have to take advantage of that right. And this is kind of, especially in light of the fact that we're going to be discussing the millage rate tonight. So that's all I got.
Okay, Craig?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not disappointed no one's here because usually when someone hears there's a problem, but I will say we have gotten some very good ideas, including Jordan's idea for the park. So those things kind of come through in the natural process. So I think it's okay. We still have to, we hold ourselves to a higher standard and it's okay. We get this stuff done and we're happy to have Brianne and the team to do what they do. My idea though, one thought I want to mention is I went to Gumbo Limbo Park this past weekend with out-of-town guests who were in awe of the entire facility and loved the FAU turtle tanks and the tower. Is the first time I went up to the tower. I was waiting for a long time, but I actually went up the tower step by step. It is an impressive facility. Can't wait for hurricane cleanup so we can see the ocean, but it is very impressive. My question though, and an observation, and I'm sorry I didn't give you more advanced notice, Brianne, but it looked to me like there's some orange pipes out there running to the tanks, and they have rental signs on them, a train rental agreement. It appears that they're trying to cool the water. And my question is, we implemented a new process of bringing in that water from the ocean, and I get it, we have global warming and there's other things going on. Is there a temporary solution or a permanent solution needed for this?
So a permanent solution is needed. They are working on a temporary solution right now. And that temporary solution is, it's cooling the water down. So there's been progress there. I just heard that update last week when I met with Tiffany and Greg. So their temporary, what they're trying right now is working. So they're working on now formulating a permanent fix for that. So yes, that's
So-
what it's about, because the water being pumped directly from the ocean is great. That's all working and it's going great, but that water is hot.
Hot, yeah,
Um,
that's what I thought. So usually the city projects are pretty expensive. Is this something that we're budgeting for? And that's why I'm kind of going down this path that we need to be thinking about that. And this is the time that we do this kind of
We-
stuff. And it looks like it's got to be permanent.
There is going to be a permanent need to fix something out there. We don't know the cost yet, but it's definitely something to consider. I think they had design costs this year looking at that permanent solution, but once they get through that process, then we would have a better idea of how much
Okay,
the permanent fix will cost for us.
okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to see, Steve, that the public has arrived. Yes. Thank you. Just a couple of things. There was someone, gentleman mentioned the tennis courts there at Ocean Breeze that, were,
Mhm.
and coming down the hill, I take that road occasionally, and I must say, we're doing a good job with keeping the property looking nice, much better than the way it was before we bought it. And I think at some point, I'm not sure how we left the tennis courts removal, but I mean, it's not as bad as what it was described to me. I mean, but if we can do something there to make it more palatable, I'm in favor of that. And interesting, I drove down Second Avenue also and saw the yellow planning and zoning sign up there. And I pulled over just to make sure that it was referencing our project. And then this morning when I was at Publix, I was handed a sheet of paper by the checkout person, said, what does all this mean here? This was a letter from planning and zoning, I guess, that she had gotten in.
Oh.
And another person was asking the same question. And I said, well, this property right here, that's where the pickleball facility is going to be. Well, it's going to be noisy, isn't it? I said, no, the outdoor courts that you're talking and we're concerned about are on the other side, so they'll be shielded from you. What about where the hotel was? I said, well, nothing specifically has been designed there. And so, and I said, and what about the northern part? So I explained to her a little bit about the project and put her mind at ease. So there are still folks out there that really are unaware of the activity, in spite of our efforts to, provide communication to the public. I was thinking there might be more here tonight because of the notices. Apparently, maybe I'm not sure whether the flyer was handed out by somebody on the board or whether they got this. I think you get it in the mail
Yes.
if it's you're adjacent to the property that's going on. So, but after I explained a little more detail about the project, and they're very comfortable. Said we're going to do our very best for the residents around there not to be disruptive. We'll try to have ways to keep folks from going on the property and, after hours and with security and the like. So it may be that, and I did hear from one Harold Chaffee. Did he get in touch with you today?
He did. He left me a voicemail. I sent him an email. Yeah.
His wife has just finished, I think has one more treatment, and then the doctor said she has another 6 more to go. So, but he said she's improving, but just very tired. And I said to Harold, well, we miss seeing you at our meetings and wish Barbara all the best. And congratulations to Sue. As a grandparent, I sent her a note, said, don't blink because you know, it's just like yesterday that I was holding my grandson as an infant, and now he's graduated from high school. So it happens quickly as our chair sees happening. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Rollins, just on the note of the tennis courts, we are, after that meeting, we did start soliciting some bids from contractors to see what it would cost to demo that. So we'll have that update at the next meeting.
Okay, and it's not as much an eyesore as it's unnecessary. And if we could improve that corner a little bit, you know, I think that would make everybody happy, you know. And I don't know that, I think we took the fence down, we took the nets down, so I don't think people are, you know, out there playing, you know, sport like they were doing before, so.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to see that project finished then.
Go ahead.
Thank you all for the good wishes. He is a little cutie. To your note about the people not knowing what's going on, is there a possibility we could put some kind of a sign up at North Park with a QR code that would, you know, reference what we're going to be doing on at least on the east side? That way we wouldn't have to go into a major map or anything like that, or a major explanation. Just, you know, scan this QR code and you can see what we're up to.
Okay.
That might help some of the residents. On another note, we all got emails about staff evaluations. I think we need to recognize the efforts of our executive director as well as our other staff of Melissa and Joanne. I'd like to recommend an increase in Brianne's salary as well, so that she doesn't feel left out, of 5%.
Oh.
I told her you were going to say more. I know you.
Well, I certainly think it's a timely thing to have as a discussion. You know, I think, you know, a COLA plus an increase probably would be in order. I mean, performance bonus, I think is, you know, for doing a good job, I think is good, but I think also, you know, a COLA might be appropriate as well. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, and but that would be my feeling.
I like your idea.
Okay. Do we have to like put it on the agenda or anything,
If I may,
or have further discussion?
the answer is that it's not on the agenda currently. It is a premise to get on the next agenda. To the extent that you have a second reading at the next meeting of your millage and budget, that would be an appropriate time to actually have a premise to do so. But a motion to do so this evening to get it on that agenda would be very useful with the conditions that you're describing, unless you would choose to make them at that time.
So moved.
Well, I think the answer is yes. I just don't know what's on the other agenda items, so I'd be sensitive to the timing of when that is. So I think there is a discussion, but you want to when is that discussion? You want to have it during the budget meetings?
Well, yeah, I'll
Okay.
look at our next few agendas and see when the right time is to talk about that.
Okay.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think Brianne has been extremely impressive, as well as the rest of our staff.
Yeah, I couldn't do it alone, so I have to thank everybody here, including our independent people like Merv and Chuck as well, and obviously Joanne and Melissa are extremely helpful.
And just and I think because of the staff and the relationship that you have with Greg and the city, I think now that, you know, the communications are a lot better. I think that our relationship has never been better than it has, and we're cooperating both ways. And I've just been real happy with what's happened with our relationship, and I attribute a large part of that to you, Brianne, for making that happen.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may quickly offer, so as not to leave the item simply laying out in the wind, it might be useful to adopt a motion of support for a compensation modification at a meeting yet to be assigned for the purposes of increasing the compensation for the executive director at the time, but that the motion this evening would be to support an increase based upon tonight's discussion to be agendized at some future meeting that you all think is more.
Yes.
So should I make a motion?
I
to
would do
this?
that, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to add an agenda item to increase Brianne's cost of living as well as a bonus.
Second.
Welcome.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion
So Madam Chair,
passes
the legal
unanimously.
premise is currently in place.
Right.
To do so. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have to finish up here. So the public notice that's on Second Avenue, I've stopped 3 times now for people standing in front of it, reading it so that I could talk on my way home and leaving my house. So at least I touched base with a few people, letting them know exactly what was happening and explaining the public notice. So okay, so we're good to go.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes,
Motion passes.
we are adjourned. Okay, we have 2